Goeiedag Kleurnet-kijkers. Ik zit hier aan tafel met dokter James Dwyer en hij is op zijn Engels gezegd een holistic dokter. Ik weet niet goed hoe ik het moet vertalen, maar hij is in ieder geval veel bezig met planten en geneeskunde. Hij gaat ons van alles wat vertellen. Welcome Dr. James. How are you?
I have to be well. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Can you tell us something about your profession?
I'm a holistic medical practitioner. I practice herbalism, acupuncture, homeopathy, osteopathy, massage, psychotherapy, astrology, and what I call Celtic medicine, which is Druidic medicine.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for how long have you been busy with this profession? Were you first only interested in normal, regular medicines, or?
I try not to be busy. In my experience, I suppose people who are busy are not necessarily always honest.
Mm-hmm.
If you cure your patients, they tend not to come back. So you're always looking for new ones.
Yeah.
But I've been practicing, I suppose, holistic medicine for 23 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times when I hear people about the kind of medicine of your study is about, of how do you call it, your profession is about, that it's true what you say. You cure the people and they never come back. And a lot of people I spoke to went to people like these. They go there and they say to them, like, you have to come back every 6 weeks and pay 95 guilders.
No.
How does it work?
No, that isn't the way it works. I try to get rid of my patients when they come to me. Most people come about 3 times to me. I try to get them independent as quickly as possible, and that is to say independent of me.
Mm-hmm.
I am an Aquarian, and Aquarius astrologically is about independence, and I myself, I'm not happy about taking on patients who want just to be dependent on me as a practitioner. I will give them the support they need, but the aim of therapy is always to get people to fly unaided and to recover totally. I mean, I try to cure the patients as far as that is possible. So the business of coming many times is not an option. One of the things I studied was acupuncture. And I'm horrified when people go to acupuncturists and they're told they have to come, 36 times, because acupuncture, when it's practiced properly, is about using the minimum number of needles and the minimum number of sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And you can cure patients very often using one needle in one session. And if you can do that, then it's very dishonest to do it any other way.
Have you met a lot of people who do so?
The thing is that there is a spirit that goes with practicing really holistically, and if you have that spirit, then you achieve results in that spirit. Now, if you are practicing really holistically, you're likely to be poor as a practitioner, because the modern economic system does not encourage people to work holistically.
Mm-hmm.
Because people have to pay all sorts of overheads like rents and subscriptions to professional bodies. Some people buy insurance, which I have never done, because I don't believe that my patients who come to me need to be insured, because I never have any problems which would require them to be insured. But lots of people who have nothing to do with medicine get involved, and that makes the cost of everything very great. And then practitioners find they have to start doing things which are not terribly ethical.
Such as?
Well, inviting people back unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm.
In my own profession as a doctor, I mean, people are being invited for all sorts of unnecessary procedures, from vaccinations to the prescription of unnecessary medicines, and that's happening all the time, and it's unnecessary, and it's dishonest. And
what kind of medicines do you call unnecessary then? Are there particular medicines that you think Or like placebo or
Oh no, well no. I mean, I have worked as a doctor in various environments. I worked for some years in Paris as an accident and emergency doctor and a forensic doctor. I've worked as a general practitioner in France and in Jersey and in Ireland and
there's a lot of places.
well, also, I mean, I've treated patients all over the world. I have patients in Australia, in the Middle East, in the United States, all over Europe.
As a holistic doctor.
Yes,
then?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
But working in conventional medicine, one finds an awful number of unnecessary surgical operations, unnecessary prescriptions for painkillers, antibiotics, you name it. I have cured people with natural remedies who were told they had to have certain conventional medicines, and that was absolutely untrue.
What kind of diseases did you come along to in your profession, and did you cure?
Well, I've treated all sorts, and I've had results with all sorts of situations. I cured a man of stomach cancer once in Jersey using a plant called meadowsweet. The Latin name is Spirea or Maria. I cured a lady in Paris of a liver tumor using apples and water. I've cured people of all sorts of neurological problems, psychological problems,
you are very certain of
orthopedic
yourself.
problem.
I mean, you can say from yourself, I can prove it.
Well, the patients will testify. I mean, I've never had any problems with patients. The only problems I've ever had in my life, probably professional life, has been from jealous colleagues.
What happened?
Well, I mean, people panic when they see someone getting good results using things which are readily available and cheap, like apples and water, and they fear for their income.
So they smile in your
So
face and stab you in the
then
back.
they use the secret society network, the Freemasons and all this, to create court cases and problems using, involving the police and so on. And this is a well-known technique which has been used many, many times in many countries, many times in history. They need to give the impression that the person who is healing the sick is in some way not acceptable. So they just use the trick of taking people to court to try and.
And what happened then?
What happens then is that, in my case in Jersey, I was twice taken to court in Jersey. The second time was because I suggested I could cure the AIDS patients and prevent AIDS happening using herbs essentially and acupuncture, because I did research on this in Paris. I did a thesis in Paris on acupuncture and viral disease, and I discovered many things through my research. One thing I discovered was that the so-called AIDS virus was probably invented in a laboratory to cause problems for people deliberately.
You think so?
Oh yes, absolutely.
How did you come to
absolutely.
that idea?
Just knowledge, just my political awareness through being half Irish, and my knowledge of the way the world is, and also the fact that this virus is actually a very unusual virus in terms of the natural viruses which exist, and it's actually relatively weak. It's 10 times weaker than the hepatitis B virus, and it's so unlikely that this could have evolved naturally. And it was so interesting that the Pasteur Institute was so involved in discovering it, and also that they probably caused the huge viral epidemic in Africa by the fact that they promoted the BCG vaccination campaign.
What's BCG?
BCG is a product produced by the Pasteur Institute in Paris, which is promoted worldwide for the prevention of TB. Now, it doesn't prevent TB. But when TB occurs in people who have had the BCG vaccination, it is a bit weaker than it would otherwise be. But through the BCG vaccination campaign, I feel the Pasteur Institute were involved in propagating the HIV virus in Africa. But also the HIV virus was propagated in California through research that was done on promiscuous homosexuals there who volunteered to participate in medical experiments. And they were seeded using this virus on
purpose. And they knew what kind of effect it would be.
Well, the people promoting this were probably the Wellcome Foundation, Glaxo Wellcome, who were a company who then made a huge amount of money out of the AIDS epidemic by bullying governments worldwide to promote a medicine called AZT, which they claimed was the only legitimate treatment for AIDS. In fact, AZT, it was a very toxic medicine which has probably killed an awful lot of people now, but made a lot of money for this.
How can it come so far then? I mean, people start noticing that things are different than they claim to be.
No, the way big business works these days is that you have an idea which could make money. It doesn't matter if people are injured or killed. You just force people to use this thing. You brainwash them to believe that it's going to be effective. And some years down the line, when it can be proven that these things were rubbish, since the companies have made their money, they can then pay the compensation claims.
But it's a bit odd. I mean, with plants and medication, medical things with plants, it's been for ages, even longer than regular medicines. I mean, how come that it's so under, how do you call that people just don't recognize the real value of plants?
Well, people live in cities, and people are divorced from the land and divorced from their roots in many ways, and an awful lot of programming goes on. People are told that black is white, and there is a social security system which is government approved, but unfortunately the governments are now put in power by the money of big business, and so once in power they just do what big business dictates.
Yeah. So it's a bit tricky. But how you say you can know the thing to cure AIDS? Don't you think that's a bit scary to tell? Because maybe when you come to television, people start calling like help, help, and.
Well, I mean, AIDS is a faux problème, you see, in lots of ways. AIDS is an artificial creation. It's a syndrome which was created in the United States. The HIV virus doesn't cause AIDS. HIV is just a contamination which occurs, and it's a separate problem to AIDS, actually. But we have lots of antiviral things that work. Acupuncture is a very powerful antiviral medicine. There are many, many plants which have antiviral actions. And if you have a truly holistic approach, and you're dealing with people now who want to be well, I'm not thinking of people who have such developed self-destructive tendencies that they're not really interested in health, then there's very little that can resist that, you know. But the conventional therapies, unfortunately, and this is one of the problems with the medical profession, it's been taken over by big business. The conventional therapies, unfortunately, are there more often than not to make money for big business, and therefore it is not totally honest what they're doing. You know.
But it's getting more popular, isn't it? Because I hear a lot of more people talking about, I don't know if you know the word St. Janskruid.
Well, St. Johnswort is something which I've taken a special interest in as a herbalist, because it's recently been banned in Ireland.
Why?
Because it was competing with something called Prozac.
Oh God. Oh.
Very successfully.
Yeah, but if you take
very
too
successfully.
much, it's scary now.
Which one?
Prozac.
Yes. Well, not St. John's Wort. I also work as an aviation doctor in Ireland. I examine pilots for their licenses, and there was some work done in the United States, and some work published in the Aviation Journal, produced by the United States Air Force, essentially, where they featured St. John's Wort. And they featured all the herbs that could affect pilots in their activities. Yeah, and they were pretty hostile to herbal remedies in general. They were looking for problems with herbs, right?
God, yeah.
But they didn't find any problem with St. Johnswort.
And what happened then?
No, well, it's good. It's excellent. They find no problem at all. And in Ireland now, there is this. They passed a law to ban, effectively, to ban St. Johnswort, in the sense that St. Johnswort could only be prescribed by doctors. I mean, I can prescribe it, but it was an effective banning. There was so much hostility to this that they may well come back on this. I don't think they will get away with it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
St. Johnswort is something which has been used in Ireland for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
The Irish word for St. Johnswort is the Irish term, for St. Johnswort is Baha Nua, which means new life.
Mm-hmm. Baha
Nua.
Oh yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So that's the Irish word for St. Johnswort.
Mm-hmm. And all people are complaining, maybe you know something about it, all people nowadays are complaining that they're tired and drained. I mean, is there something with herbs you can do?
Lots of things you can do. People are exposing themselves to an awful lot of electromagnetic pollution through mobile phones, microwave ovens, and all this sort of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And that will take its toll. Obviously, there are traditional ways of absorbing negative energies. One is having a cat in the house.
Cat?
Yes, they absorb negative energies. You see.
Really? I'm going to get a cat next summer. So.
Well, I have 6 kittens to find homes for immediately, so if you know anyone who wants kittens, we'll deliver them to Amsterdam.
Oh, really?
They're available now.
How old are they?
They're about a month.
Oh, that's too young still. They need to be 6 weeks.
Yeah, they're ready to go anyway.
Okay,
but anyway, cats are a way of protecting yourself from negative energy.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to take things which are immune stimulants, like ginseng root is an immune stimulant. Acupuncture treatment gives rise to an increase in the levels of white blood cells. Many plants, ginseng's a radioactive plant. Many other plants also have an effect. Certain waters, mineral waters, have an immunostimulant effect. Mm-hmm. Having a diet which is adapted to your environment is interesting too. There's an interesting plant to protect you from radioactivity in general, which is called buckwheat.
Buckwheat?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, buikwijdopjes.
Yeah. That is a very good plant.
They got it in pillows as well.
That's a very good plant for protecting people from radioactive contamination or exposure.
Radioactive, where should that come from then?
X-rays, if you have an X-ray.
Oh. Is it really unhealthy then?
Or if you have radiotherapy, or if you are living in a zone which has a lot of granite.
Oh, okay.
Or there are lots of areas where you can get radioactive.
Well, if I may disturb, we haven't got that much time left, but I wanted to ask you one question about
That sounds ominous. That sounds ominous.
Yeah. The tape is like, go.
People in a hurry die young.
Yeah. No, I won't die young. My whole family gets about 100. But I do eat a lot of herbs, so maybe that's it. Could be. About the Congress you're going to.
Yeah.
Can you tell me in short something about that?
Yeah. I've been invited to come to a weekend congress being held at the Park Hotel in Amsterdam about the work of Professor Mirko Beljanski, who worked at the Pasteur Institute, who developed a number of products which apparently are very successful in the treatment of cancer, AIDS, and blood contamination problems. Some of them seem to work extremely well with conventional drugs used in chemotherapy, and people using the two substances or approaches together find that when they're having chemotherapy they have fewer side effects. One aspect of this is that they don't lose their hair, which is a very important sort of cosmetic consequence of having this sort of therapy, but also that the cancers respond better. And I just need to inform myself about this work and about the experiences of doctors using these substances in the field, and that's what I'm here for.
So you're going to learn more about it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks very much for this conversation. It was a bit short. I'm sure you got a lot more to tell, but there's not more time.
Okay.
So Thanks and maybe till next time.
Okay.
Oké, Kleurnet-kijkers, hartstikke bedankt voor het kijken. Het was een beetje kort. Hij had heel veel meer te vertellen, ben ik van overtuigd. Maar ja, jammer genoeg is de band op. Dus tot de volgende keer. Dag!